This is a meeting of the subcommittee of the city manager search. In the room, we have the three members of the city council who are on this committee. Councilmember Perkins, Councilmember Fears, and myself. In addition, we have staff members who are part of this committee: Jason Euchard, Charlie Bissell, Suzanne Holland is the city clerk, Marissa Smith from HR, Rich Sessi from procurement, and Lisa Reynolds, interim city manager, who is all will be participating. In front of us, we have a series of questions that we agreed to at the last meeting. They've been divided up. In addition, we have the scoring sheet, which was presented in the RFP. This is the scoring sheet for the presentation, which is separate from the scoring sheet for the written proposals. The written proposals is how we narrowed our search down from 13 to 2. These two have been invited to make presentations to the entire committee. After this, the committee will, 5 teams, interview both of these, score them, and then we will make a recommendation back to the full council. The full council will have the opportunity to vote on the finals. Anything that you guys want to add to process?
No.
We're in the midst of just checking our tech here to be sure that we can join in anybody who is in the waiting room. At 8:30, we will transition over to interview our candidates. And I'm sorry, I don't have an agenda. Which one of the 8 candidates is first?
It's going to be Banzinger.
Are we just referring to them in the last name? It's to Colin Banzinger.
It's got to be
Yes. And Suzanne, have you got an answer on whether the mayor's joining us?
I'm trying to send it's 30475.
I didn't hear you now.
Okay, that's the mayor. All right, perfect.
And Mayor Rowland, are you able to come into the Teams link?
He should be in it.
Okay. Can he see? Okay. All right, thank you.
So I think is that link that she's got up there? Is that the link that she has up for the interview? Is that the interview link?
I assume so.
Okay, then what Rich and I and the mayor are on is the meeting at 8 o'clock. So we have 3 links.
Okay. So just for clarity, we will shut that down and then they
Yes.
will come into the presentation link. We will reactivate it for conversation in between. Yes. And then we'll go to the second link for SGR. Okay.
Yes, yes. Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Thank you.
I'm going to join visually in a moment. The microphone on my computer is not working this morning for some reason.
We're glad that happens to someone else.
Well, I'll be honest, it's been going on for a little while. I just haven't gotten the computer guy in here to fix it, so. There we go. Okay, so far so good. All right, should be waiting to be let in on by the on the visual. Let's see, I'm going to turn off that mic. You see me or?
We're working our end.
There you go.
Oh, no problem.
There we go.
are.
Go.
There we
There we
go.
go.
Uh-oh,
Uh-oh.
got an
I'm looking.
echo.
So,
Your mic's working.
Well, let's try this. Come on.
Rich, can you make him full screen?
That better? Yep. That mic's working. It's actually the speakers that are not working, come to think of it. But I think I'm good
Okay.
now.
You can just double click on this picture.
We're just checking to see if we can make you full screen so we can see you well. Are you able to see us?
Yeah, I can see you beautifully.
Great. Okay.
There we go. I don't see Scott yet. He should be on momentarily. Looking for my partner. Let's see.
Anybody you never see.
Okay, to have the tech guy.
Exactly. That's how you keep me around. True.
Just shoot him a text.
Thank you.
He's supposed to do the majority of the presentation, so I need to get him on here. Otherwise, I'll have to do it.
He just showed up, so we're,
There he is.
and then Jason, can we split screen so we can see both of them? Come on. Allow us, or at least toggle back and forth, whatever we need to do there.
They're always changing
You may have,
view
you
options.
may have to sit on this side of the ground.
Ooh, I
If you
think
just
we
do
can
speaker,
do speaker.
it will
There you
just take the participants off too.
Well, good morning, Scott.
Good morning. How is everyone this morning?
You know, we're great. All right,
Jason, you can take the participants off. There you go. Much better.
That's better, yeah.
all right, Scott.
Sorry.
We are going to start with our introductions, and then we'll turn it over to you, if that's all right.
Of course,
Okay.
perfect.
I'm Bridget McCandless. I'm an at-large council member for the City of Independence. I'm joined by two other council members and several staff. We'll go around the room and let them introduce themselves. But I'd like to welcome you to a public meeting of the subcommittee for the search for a new city manager. Your firm was selected out of a robust pool of submissions, so we're delighted that you put forward such a good proposal. I always want to let people know we should have a decision for you in 7 to 10 days so that you're not sitting out there wondering what we're doing. And so I think with that introduction, I'm going to start. Jason, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jason Dukert, IT Director.
I'm Charlie DeSell, an Assistant City Manager.
I am Suzanne Holland, the city clerk.
Hi, Carissa Smith, HR Director.
Hi, I'm John Perkins, First District Councilman. I will represent the northwest side of Independence.
I'm Jared Fears. I'm an at-large council person. Morning, Rich Tessie, Procurement Manager.
Good morning, Lisa Reynolds, Deputy City Manager and currently Interim City Manager.
Fantastic. We will let you guys take it away.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Very nice to meet all of you. Of course, my name is Scott Krim, and I am thrilled to be here. I will be the main project manager on this search. My background is in court administration, and I have been hiring and recruiting government employees for longer than I care to admit. And I also have with me my managing partner and founder of our firm, Colin Benziger. Colin has been a city manager, and he has worked in and for governments his entire career. Now, before we begin, and on a personal note, I'd just like to mention that I have visited Independence. I had my brother-in-law and his family lived in Manhattan, Kansas, and we went to visit them a few years back, And they said, we have got to take you to this community over in Independence. And so we visited Independence. We, of course, went to the Harry Truman Museum and Library. And then we had lunch at a beautiful park there in Independence. And you have a great community. I was impressed with it then. My brother-in-law and his family, they loved it, and so much so that they felt the need to show it to us, and I'm so glad that they did. And we are certainly looking forward to finding you a great city manager. A little bit about our firm is that we have been recruiting in the public sector for 27 years. We work almost exclusively with local governments, and we specialize in finding city managers and county administrators. Our top people have been city managers and administrators and/or elected officials. We are a national firm and have conducted searches all over the country. More specifically, we recently worked with Davenport, Iowa, where we placed their city administrator and their city attorney. We also placed the city attorney in Moline, Illinois, and the city manager in Fort Smith, Arkansas. What we can offer you is a problem-free search. We have learned from the mistakes of our competitors and a few of our own, so that at this point, our approach is problem-free. We have the extraordinary ability to find the right people for you. And I say people because our goal is to have you interview at least 5 people, all of whom who would do an outstanding job for you. We conduct what we call a turnkey search, where we will certainly interact with your staff and will keep you fully informed, but we'll do the search with minimal assistance from your staff. And we build strong relationships. We work extremely well with elected officials, the public, staff, candidates, and even the press. Now, the big question is, what separates us from the other firms? One of the other major items that sets us apart is our thoroughness in our background checks, which I'll talk about in just a moment. More crucially, when we present the list of recommended candidates for you to select and interview, those candidates will already have their background work completed. That way you can move forward with your selected candidates with confidence. Now, other tenets that make us stand out is our focus on recruiting top-level positions in local government. In terms of client orientation, we live on our reputation. All of our advertising is word of mouth, so we need to ensure that you are satisfied. Our purpose is to get you candidates you want and deserve. Where diversity is concerned, we have a strong track record for finding highly qualified women and minority candidates. Generally, 40% of our finalists are females and minorities. In regards to our responsiveness, you will have my cell phone number, and I encourage you to call me anytime, day or night. My purpose is to meet your needs. Concerning a tailored approach, we will absolutely tailor our approach to suit your needs, whether that be with our recruitment brochure, the skill set of our candidates, or the final events and interviews. We consider our work not just a profession, but an avocation. In addition to being experienced managers, administrators, and elected officials, we are experienced municipal consultants. We have seen how cities and counties around the country do things. We are available at no cost to answer any questions you might have on any matters relating to government. Just give us a call. In connection with reliability, we have never missed a project milestone, and we have never asked for more than the initially quoted price, even if we were entitled to it. Again, with thoroughness, we conduct the best background checks in the business. You'll know everything you ever wanted to know about the candidates, and you'll know it before you select your finalists. In connection with communication and trust, at the very least, you can expect a weekly email letting you know where we are in the process and what we're working on. Also, we keep our candidates well informed along the way. Simply put, we follow through on our commitments. What we promise is what we deliver. Once organizations see the quality of our work, they use us again and again. For example, in Roanoke, Virginia, we have helped to hire their city manager, their city attorney, their finance director, their planning director, and their human resource director. The bottom line is we have the promising ability to find the right people for the job, and we'll do it in a timely and cost-effective manner. Let me just point out a few things about our process. To begin, we'll come to you because we need to get to know you one-on-one. Good candidates will want to know who they'll be working for. Meeting with you individually will help us to create a recruitment brochure, which is the key document in the recruitment effort. It needs to present your city in a positive light, but it also has to present a fair and balanced picture. We can also assist in conducting a compensation study to help you agree on a salary range for your next city manager. Now, once the brochure is finalized, we can start advertising. We'll post the recruitment brochure on our website and send the brochure to approximately 14,000 individuals on our email listserv. We'll also post on LinkedIn with almost 10,000 subscribers. We'll advertise on platforms with municipalities and with government groups. We'll also make calls to several municipalities and individuals that we feel might be a good fit for independents. Once the position is closed, we will review each candidate's resume and pick out 6 to 12 of the best candidates that not only look good on paper, but pass what we call the Collin or Scott test. Succinctly, this interview ensures that these individuals know what they're doing. Our staff will go to work by conducting thorough background checks, calling and writing reference notes, and researching the internet for news media and social media. Upon completion, you'll be given a lengthy and thorough report on each of our recommended candidates. These reports will include each candidate's resume and cover letter and all the background work I just mentioned. In fact, the biggest complaint that we receive from our clients is that our reports are too long. We want to ensure that these candidates don't have any skeletons in the closet. And to be frank, if a candidate had any serious issues, we simply wouldn't recommend them. Let me just also note that in regard to references, we don't ask for their 5 best friends. We tell them who we want to talk to. Ideally, these include their current elected officials, their past elected officials, city attorney, the city's external auditor, the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, newspaper reporters, their peers, their subordinates, and community activists, even the human resource director. With background checks, we run criminal at the county, state, and federal level, civil at the county and federal level, their credit and bankruptcy, motor vehicle, we verify their education, and we verify their employment. As far as the final interview process, we have a memo that outlines the actual process and who handles what portions of it. It's like a cookbook, so nothing is missed. Events and interviews are generally on a Thursday and Friday, but we can do them whenever is good for you. We also recommend inviting the spouses, but we understand if the budget does not permit. We also provide an interview packet for you to use, if you wish, for the final interviews. This will include an evaluation guide, interview questions, and instructions on questions not to ask. In the end, you'll have the opportunity to select which candidates you'd like to interview. Once that decision has been made, we recommend the council see the candidates in 3 different settings. First, a social setting, perhaps a reception, and that'll do a couple of things. This provides the public and staff with the opportunity to meet the candidates. If you desire, they can give you their input informally. This provides you also with an opportunity to get to know the candidates informally. Second is one-on-one interviews. What makes or breaks a manager is the chemistry that they will have with the council. The one-on-ones gives you the opportunity to get to know the candidates and for them to get to know you to see if the chemistry is there. Finally, council interviews. Each candidate appears before the council one at a time and answers questions for roughly 30 minutes. As far as selection, we have a simple process that generally brings the city council to a conclusion very quickly. In reference to the contract, we will assist in whatever way you desire. We can act as a lead negotiator, we can act as advisors. We can step back and let your attorney do it. Now, we do want to stay informed, however, that way if problems come up and you need us, we can help out. Post-contract, we will stay in touch with you and periodically reach out to see how the manager is doing. If problems come up, we want to know about them so that we can step in and try to find a solution before it's too late. Sometimes a familiar face outside of their organization can be extremely helpful. Now, the timeline for our process is approximately 90 days. In reference to the price, our listed price is all inclusive. It includes creating a recruitment brochure, outreach, all advertising, candidate reports that includes extensive background checks, and our firm's travel accommodations. The only additional expense the city will incur is bringing the candidates to Independence for the final events and interviews. And finally, our guarantee. We promise to give you 125%, not just the mere 110% other firms promise. Our process is time-tested and problem-free, and will bring you great candidates who are fully vetted. Now, I do understand that the city might have a few concerns in bringing in a recruiting firm, and I'd like to allow Colin a few moments to address some of those possible concerns.
We received an email from Suzanne listing a few questions. But before I do that, there was one thing I wanted to mention. Well, 2 things in particular. One of which was Scott mentioned we'd reach out to several municipalities. That's an understatement. We will reach out to everybody in the surrounding states with a population where the manager could reasonably manage something the size of Independence. You are a pretty darn big city in comparison to what most city managers handle. There's probably, I've forgotten the numbers now, but I believe there's only about 200 cities with a city manager form of government that have a population over 100,000. There's only 400 with a population of over 50,000. So your size will dictate who we reach out to some degree. Obviously, Scott mentioned the other means we use, but we'll probably be reaching out to 75 or 100 cities in the Midwest generally. The second thing I wanted to mention was chemistry. He mentioned that on the one-on-one interviews. I've been doing this, as Scott indicated, 27 years, and I'm convinced that a manager succeeds or fails based on the chemistry that he or she has with their elected officials. if you don't have good chemistry, the manager is not going to be successful. And so those are the two things I just wanted to follow up on and emphasize in Scott's presentation. There was a question raised about all the wonderful things that are going on in Independence now. You've got some issues in your police department. I guess there was a former city council member that had some tax issues, and just in the independent school districts had some issues. Is that going to cause a problem? No, not really. I mean, all city managers, and I say this in jest, but all city managers are somewhat masochistic. And by that, I mean, they think they can solve any problem that comes up. So they've seen problems before. They'll see them again. And the issues you face, frankly, I know they're very dramatic and traumatizing in your community, but they're not terribly atypical nationwide. So I don't think that's going to be impact the search. Certainly, if it does impact somebody, if somebody is concerned about getting into those issues, you don't want them anyway. You want somebody who's going to be excited about fixing things and where there are problems. And you mentioned the election coming up and all of that. That happens too. I was going to give you an example. Davenport, Iowa, which we did about a year ago. When we came in there, they had an apartment building collapse about 2 blocks from City Hall. They had a former city council member who was accused of sexually harassing the staff, hostile workplace environment. They had the prior city administrator left with a very large compensation package that was all negotiated kind of behind the scenes and approved behind the scenes. So they're on the Mississippi River, so they had some flooding. I mean, they had some serious issues, and we got them a great pool of candidates. The important thing, I think, for you is that you are using a recruiter that sends a message that you're serious about getting the best city manager you can. And of course, we're going to be positive when we present your community. Again, as Scott said, we'll be fair and honest, but you seem like, from what I've been able to judge just from the chemistry, like a very good group of people concerned about your community. And that's something we want to present, and we will be able to present to get candidates. Now, I will say, another question was, how long do our managers stay? We consider a search successful if that manager stays at least 5 years. We are not like some of the other firms in the sense that we think it's good for a manager to stay 15 or 20 years. We think the ideal tenure for a manager is somewhere between 5 and say 12 years. And it depends on the manager, obviously. But I think managers tend to get a little stale over time. And they need new challenges. And frankly, cities need a fresh set of eyes periodically. Remember, one of my first searches was a city in Florida where the outgoing manager said, I feel sorry for the guy coming in because we fixed all the problems. We picked all the low-hanging fruit. I had lunch with the new city manager 6 months later, and he said, I can't believe all the low-hanging fruit. That perspective is important. But going back to the question, I think our success rate is pretty similar to most other firms in terms of, or a little better actually, in terms of managers staying. But things happen. For example, I just mentioned Davenport. Our placement there developed a health issue about 9 months into the job. So he's resigning, and to take care of his health. Now, technically, our guarantee says it's an act. If it's an act of God, we're not on the hook to repeat the search for our expenses only. And frankly, we didn't feel right about that. So even though it's outside our guarantee, we're going to honor that guarantee in a sense and do the search for our expenses only. We just didn't feel right about placing somebody who lasted, I mean, he's going to be a full year when he's actually just resigned. It was a full year, but and it was an act of God, but frankly, we just didn't feel right about it. So the other question was the timing, and there's a schedule in our proposal that outlines what we typically do. We would make one change to that schedule. Well, it's actually, I guess, several, but we have it closing the day after Thanksgiving, which is not a great day to close the recruitment. So we would move that date back a week. So I think it's December 6th, the Friday, the following Friday. And then everything else would also get bumped back a week. But the holidays really aren't going to impact us in any way except for that. You're actually at a point where once we start, the holidays, it's easy to work around the holidays. If it had been like 3 weeks earlier, it would have been a mess. But we've been doing this for 27 years, so it's not a big deal. We just know how to do it. So if there's any other questions, Scott's ready to answer them. So am I.
Oh, we have several questions. Some of our questions were answered. So if you feel like you'd like to modify your question based on our evaluation criteria, feel free to do so. So thank you for talking us through. I'm going to have Councilmember Fears begin.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the information you've shared so far. I was writing quickly when you were talking about how you would approach the recruitment and candidate sourcing process. I got written down your 14,000 emails and phone calls, but can you just kind of review that for me again and just kind of outline that process one more time?
Absolutely, and I apologize if I spoke too quickly during that section of the presentation. So once we have the recruitment brochure created, we're going to advertise with that brochure. Now, to be honest, we normally get about 20 to 30% of our candidates through advertising. The rest is mainly through our own outreach. Now, that brochure is going to be posted on our website. We'll also encourage you to post it on your own website, and then we'll advertise on various platforms. For example, we'll send it to 14,000 individuals that are on our email listserv, and we're going to post it on LinkedIn, where we have almost 10,000 subscribers. And we're going to post on various platforms and other websites. That way, we're really trying to get as much outreach as possible just by advertising. Now, like Colin mentioned, we're going to call a lot of people. We're going to call a lot of people in the Midwest. We're going to call a lot of people maybe, down just below you in a few of the states. We're going to reach out to as many people as we can. We might even have a few people in mind already that could be a good fit with independents. Of course, we won't know that till we come and interview you and get to know you a little bit better. And of course, we're here to find you the best, and that is our ultimate goal.
Thank you.
So if I could just summarize, there's really like 4 sources. There's advertising, there's our email list, which we think covers pretty much every city manager in the country of any size. There's only, I think, little over 2,500 city managers in the country. So if you've got a list of 14,000, we've got an obviously a lot of assistants and others. We've got the email, we've got our email list. We have a bank of resumes from prior recruitments that Scott kind of indirectly mentioned. And then there's the outreach, so the actual phone calls.
Thank you.
Well, to dovetail on that, hi, I'm John. To dovetail on that just a little bit on the diversity, the strong diversity that we have here with our city. We have a very strong Latina and Polynesian community that has really grown over the last 10 to 12 years for sure. What type of ad placement or recruitment would you have to help bring candidates that might reflect that?
That's a great question, and I thank you for that information. That is something that we would really seek to know, and understand the diversity that exists there. There are several platforms that we can utilize to reach out to as many specifically minorities as we can. There are thankfully great organizations that exist for the Asian and Pacific Islanders, and also for the Hispanic network that exists here in the country. We're very familiar with their organizations and are grateful that they exist. That way we can advertise and make sure that we're reaching out to those specific groups.
Yeah, if I may add, there's the National Forum of Black Public Administrators. There's the Local Government Hispanic Network. There is an Asian organization, I've forgotten their name. We also reach out specifically to organizations with women because, frankly, women are underrepresented in city manager positions. They're roughly half the population. They're probably 10% of the city managers in the country. So we make an effort to build that diversity, and the fact that we have 40% of our finalists typically being females and minorities speaks to our ability to reach those candidates. And I might add, they're not looking for a handout. They just want to be treated fairly and given an opportunity. And that's what we do. We're known for that.
Thank you.
This is Carissa. Can you tell us how other cities have used the DISC testing when placing candidates?
When you say testing, you mean like assessments?
Yes, the DISC assessment.
Yeah. We've done that in the past. I'm going to just take this one because I've done it a few times. We've done that in the past. Our experience is, quite frankly, that it has always replicated our judgment. In other words, we've picked out our finalists, we put them through the DISC assessment, and they've always come out as being extremely good managers. So it's something we typically don't use simply because it does cost extra money for the most part. And it just confirms what we've already done. I did an inbox exercise some years ago, and the guy who managed the inbox exercise, the company, came back and said, "Where'd you get all these great candidates? I never get results like this." It's just our ability to pick great people. So we do have experience. If you would like to use a DISC assessment, we use Profile XT. But we don't see any need for it. We don't necessarily recommend it because it's an extra cost.
I'm going to follow on to that question. I know that some cities have used DISC testing, actually not so much for the screening aspect, but as much for helping their teammates understand how best to interact or what the skills and strengths are so that you get complementary work from your team. Have you seen cities use it that way?
I have, again, I'm going to jump in here, Scott, I'm sorry. I have, and frankly, I've been the participant in that. When I was a city manager, we went through an assessment exercise, and I'm all in favor of it. I think it's great. You know, the question as I interpreted the original question, it was as part of the recruitment process. I think and we don't find it to be extremely valuable there. We do find it to be extremely valuable in terms of helping that manager adapt to the organization, and for the members of the organization to understand him or her, and for you can do it the other way too, where you have the members of the city council and key staff take that exercise, and then everybody has a good idea of where people are coming from.
I'm gonna follow on with another question. You talked about reference checks extensively, but can you help us understand how you help assess the management style and the cultural fit of that city manager candidate to the City of Independence? Because we're all about the success of the city manager, so help us understand how those two pieces get assessed.
Absolutely. Well, for starters, like I previously mentioned, we're going to come to you. We're going to come to you and interview you and get to know you on a one-on-one basis. We want to know your culture. We want to know how you get things done. We want to know how the staff works. We want to know their opinions. Really, we're trying to create in our mind's eye what independence is, and the culture that exists there in that community. Now, once we have that in our frame of reference, excuse me, then once we start looking at the candidates, there's really only so much that you can know from looking at their resumes, of course. And so for those that appear qualified, at least on paper, we will call them and we will have extensive conversations with them. And we do it on a very informal level, kind of almost in an impromptu discussion, where we put them on the spot, and they're usually pretty frank with us, letting us know their experience, letting us know their personalities. They're usually very forward in sharing information, which is very valuable. As we start making comparisons, as Colin and I will start making comparisons and seeing, we ask ourselves, would this individual fit with, the perception that we've evaluated already in Independence? And if we feel like they would, then we move them forward, where we start doing all of the background work. We want to ensure that, that our assessment is going to match their background and their work history and their experience. And we're only going to find that out by calling their references, by following up on their news media. And once we have all of that information, we'll do a final evaluation and decide whether or not we want to advance them forward and present them to you. Really, what we say is that we can bring them to the ballpark, but you're the ones that have to take it home. And so we do our absolute best to find the best candidates, to ensure that they're qualified, but also to make sure that they would have that connection there with you, and that they would align with your goals and with your vision.
Thank
And
you.
if I could just add, I think Scott answered it well, but I would just add there's two parts to the equation, obviously. And then he addressed the first part, meeting with you, getting to know you, really understanding how you work together. And that's part of our experience. I mean, we've been doing this 27 years. We started from scratch. And obviously we've been successful. So that we have that ability to understand where you're coming from. And then the other side of the equation is the candidate. What Scott also addressed is how we put that together And you're going to get a report from us. I don't know that we talked about that in detail, but it's going to include their cover letter, their resume, document a series of questions we ask each candidate to answer, so that you've got something you can compare. You'll get the references, the background checks, and you'll get the internet. And that's really, when you put all of those pieces together, that's when you kind of develop an understanding of the candidate. And then, as Scott put it, we'll bring those candidates to the ballpark. We'll bring you 6 or 8, and then you know independence far better than we will ever know independence. And so you'll go through those reports. You'll see things that we may have missed because we're not residents of Independence. We haven't sat in your chair. And you'll pick out the people that you will know are the best fit for your community. And then interview them. At least you think will be the best fit. Then you will interview them and decide if they're the best fit. And there's nothing like seeing them eye to eye.
Can you tell us how we will get a sense of the candidate's writing and communication style?
Yes, of course. What Colin just mentioned is that in the candidate report that we'll present for each of our recommended candidates, we're going to ask them to fill out what we call a candidate introduction form. And this is going to ask them about, I think it's about 16 or 17 different questions. And they're going to answer that on their own. And we don't touch it. We don't fix it. We just put it right into that report as is. And so you'll be able to see how they write and how they can communicate. And hopefully that would give you a good sense of their writing skills. Now, of course, as far as their communication, you're going to get a feel for that when you get them across the table in an interview. That is really where, the chemistry is really going to present itself. It's also going to show how they can verbalize themselves, the responses to your questions, and also in an informal manner during, as I suggested, in a type of reception, and how they can communicate right on the spot.
Well, we're going to move on to timeline. So we have a couple of unique situations taking place. We're in the middle, the beginning process of an election cycle. So we're going to need a little bit of your advice. We will have elections in February and April to replace the mayor and 2 at-large council seats. We're coming up onto the holiday season. Can you talk about the timeline and your recommendations, including pros and cons of those various timelines?
If I may, there's 2 ways to look at this. One of which is the current elected body, and I don't know if any of the 2 at large or the mayor are going to run in the next election. But the current body has the experience of dealing with a city manager, and so they have an idea of what it takes and such. So you can argue that the current body should make the decision in terms of who should be your city manager. The flip side of it is that depending on the outcome of the election, if there's new people on the council, you would like them to have the input. I think really the key is what's going to make for the best functioning of your government in the short and long run. And given that there's 4 people that are incumbents, those are the people from the districts, as I understand it, that will be on for another 2 years, my recommendation would be to push forward with it, get it done ahead of the election. But, you know, I don't know independence nearly as well as you do in the politics, and you may think that's probably not the best solution, but you can argue it either way.
That's a fair assessment. So one follow-up to that, also with the election cycle, we're going to start our budget process the first part of the year. Our budget starts on July 1st and ends June 30th. With the city manager, they, depending on the selection timeframe and in those conversations, they may or may not have a significant role in the budget process. Do you anticipate any hiccups or problems with the selection of a manager about that?
No. I mean, managers come in at all points of the year in the budget cycle, and, you know, it's nice if they have input in the budget for the coming year, but if they don't, they don't. It's just, you know, kind of life.
Thank you.
I'm going to give a follow-on to that. We've heard the question of whatever you do, don't have a city manager search in advance of an election, because the only candidates who are going to be interested are a different pool of people who want to come when there's a settled city council. So some people aren't bothered by the change in it, and other people want to know who their council is before they sign on. So advice on that question.
You know, I did a county manager search years ago. We started 2 months before the election, made the decision a couple of days before the election, actually signed a contract a couple of days before the election. And the incoming council, because we knew the majority was going to change because of the nature of the primary, said they were going to take clear and decisive action if that manager was hired prior to them coming on board. Well, Cindy stayed 8 years after that election. So we've seen it. It can become an election issue. I think the real key is for the council to move forward as a group, whichever way you decide to go, and present a united front and the reasons why you're doing what you're doing. And if a manager's, I mean, the majority is not going to change in the election. And again, assuming there's some incumbents running, if all three ran, there may not be any change at all. So I don't see it as a hurdle particularly. There might be one or two candidates that will shy away, but if they're not brave enough to deal with change, I mean, you know, I had a candidate once who came in thinking he was going to have 4 of the 5 council members for sure. One seat was vacant. We're going to be the same, and 6 months later, he only had one of those 4 still on council. Just things happen. So managers are used to it.
Thank you.
Okay, you had mentioned in your opening statement there about the process that you use between the public engagement process, where you said staff would be involved in that, and then the one-on-ones with council, and then the actual council interview. Can you maybe divulge a little bit more into how you involve key members of our staff in the selection, knowing that, you know, we have close to 1,000 employees within this organization, and then we have a leadership team of probably about 15 people, department heads, city managers, stuff like that. But just kind of curious how you would involve those groups into the decision.
Yes, that is great. Thank you. When we come to visit Independence, we will make sure that we get to meet with the department heads. Now, we might be able to do that only as a group, but I'll be very honest. That's one of my favorite interviews. That's where, you know, we get to a great sense of the feeling, the culture, the camaraderie that exists among the department heads. But it's also a good time to receive that input, some of that vital information that perhaps the city council may not know about or give us that information. Now also, as far as being involved in the decision-making process, of course, that is entirely up to the city council. However, we do encourage a reception, a community reception where staff would be involved. You could also even have an additional reception just with staff. And we would highly recommend that, there would be some sort of a form that they could fill out to be able to be passed on to the city council, so that the city council could review those the input from not just the department heads, but from any staff member that might attend that reception.
It's if I could just add, there's a number of ways you could do this. I mean, some councils we deal with don't want staff involved at all. Obviously, since staff's sitting in the room, that's not the case here. So we could have meetings with groups of staff. We can have meetings with groups of the public. I mean, I did a search in Greensboro, North Carolina once where we actually met at the Greensboro Coliseum for like 2 town hall meetings where the public just came in and talked to us. We could have a town hall meeting with all 1,000 of your staff if you want. We could do the key we would want to do ideally the senior leadership team. But I think that's the answer to your question.
Right. You kind of touched on this in the last question related to your town halls, but can you kind of dive into how you engaged public in past searches and then what you would recommend for us?
Scott addressed it to some degree, and bearing in mind that the council makes the final decision, and 6 months from now, nobody's going to remember that they recommended somebody else if the manager fails, which of course won't happen if you hire us. But town halls work well. So we've used citizens advisory committees. Each council member picks 1 or 2 members of the community to work with us as a citizens advisory committee. It's similar to what's happening in Davenport right now. We've done surveys, online surveys, where we have a series of questions we ask the public. One of the things you have to bear in mind, though, when you start involving the public is it does elongate the process. If you're going to have a town hall to talk about the qualifications of the city manager, you really need to give it like 3 weeks or a month's notice so that people will be aware of it and be there. So that will add time to the process, but we'll make it work whatever you want to do. But those are the main things, either a town hall, an online survey, or a citizens advisory committee.
Okay, thanks.
The next question, you touched on a little bit earlier in reference to having the candidates come out and see our city, but how do you help them get a sense of our city? Do you have, specific things that you show them around to as you go? How do you help them get a sense of where they're coming to?
That is also a great question. I'll tell you, a good city manager will do their own research. I'm often very surprised to hear that a candidate will actually take a weekend and visit the town or the city themselves and do their own research. They'll of course get online. They'll search as much as they can online, but eventually, that they do need to come and meet the citizens. They do need to come meet the residents and ask them questions. And whether that occurs beforehand or during the interview process, it will happen. I think that sometimes we also forget that city managers are also interviewing the city themselves. They're getting a feel if this would be a good fit for them. Now, I very much appreciate all of our candidates, and the majority of which will already have that research completed before they are involved in the final events and interviews.
And of course, I want to jump in here. The first thing, Scott mentioned earlier, the one thing that people complain about is the length of our report. Sometimes people actually report about the length of our brochure, because our goal in the brochure is to tell them everything that they would need to know about independence in order to make a preliminary decision about whether or not they're going to apply. We don't want them, looking at something saying, well, maybe if I just need a little more information, put it aside and forget about it. So we're going to do a really good job working with you in developing that brochure so that they have a pretty good idea what they're getting into. It will include the challenges you're facing. It will include the ideal candidate. It will include information about your community, the activities that are there, what the things that draw up people there, so on and so forth. The other thing is we do recommend that you take them on a tour of the city. The first day they get there is pile them into a van or a bus and have someone who's knowledgeable drive them around the city, maybe somebody from the Chamber of Commerce and maybe somebody from your staff, and spend a couple or 3 hours on the bus.
Thank you.
So we've talked about recruiting the candidate, how we find the ideal candidate, kind of what our process would be. I'm really interested in the post-placement follow-up. These can be really lonely positions, especially if you are uprooting your family and establishing in a new town and taking on the expectations of a whole city. So can you talk to us about what kind of supports you provide afterwards? Mentoring, partnership, do you recommend any kind of additional aspects for making these candidates successful?
Yes, thank you for that question. We certainly stay in contact not only with our candidate placement, but also with you. Firstly, we'll reach out to you. We'll want to make sure that our placement is doing well and that there aren't any issues. And if there are any issues that we can help with, we absolutely will. And we will do that at no additional cost. We also will stay in contact with our placement. We want to make sure they're successful. And once they are placed, we let them know that they can reach out to us as well. If they have any questions, if they have concerns on how to handle maybe a particular quick situation, we can offer our experience and our knowledge and advise them the best that we know how. And if I don't know the answer, if Colin doesn't know the answer, we'll come together as a group and find the answer. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful process. All of our candidates become our good friends. And so we want to take care of them. We want to take care of you. We want everyone to be successful, and we will reach out and help as much as we can.
Have you
There's
guys
a couple
met?
of things that, I'm sorry, I kind of jumped in there. There's a couple of things I would recommend you do. One's a 6-month evaluation after the manager's been on the job. And then the second is that at some points a year in, you do a 360 evaluation where the manager is rated by the staff, by the elected officials, by the public, whatever. But it's a full full 360 circle evaluation of the candidate, of the manager once he's been on the job. And I think those things, if you do a 6-month evaluation and you do a 360, it helps prevent problems from festering to the point where they become real issues, and sometimes the manager gets fired as a result of them.
Okay. I just wondered, do you ever match people up with mentors since you have such an extensive network?
We have not, but it sounds like a great idea. We've certainly looked into that. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
I was just going to comment. One of the things that we see occasionally is the crossover that exists between the previous manager and the new manager. We just had a placement in Warren County, Virginia, where the old manager and the new manager are working together for about 2 months. And in fact, I did get a call from the new manager saying, I like him, but we just have different styles, approaching staff. And I said, of course you're going to have different styles. You're different individuals. And I said, you let him just do his thing, and then when you take over, you do your style. And anyways, it was very simple. And but I guess that would be not necessarily involving us, as it was already set in place.
All right, just shifting gears one final time. I know that you mentioned earlier that you consider a successful hire as a candidate that stays roughly 5 years. But can you talk to us about your average length of stay of the clients you've placed over the last 5 years?
It's a difficult question because the people that are still in place, there's no end date. So it's hard to calculate an average length of tenure. We've had some that stayed, well, like Davenport, where the guy got sick and had to leave after a year. For the most part, I'd say our managers stay at least 4. And again, we don't like them to stay more than 10 or 12.
That is an important question that we certainly utilize when we're evaluating our candidates. That we'll let them know that a particular municipality is looking for them to stay the long term, and if they can commit to that. And I'll be honest, if they tell me no, I won't advance them forward. So all of our candidates that we'll recommend have already answered to me that they will stay at least, in that 5-year range.
And then again, you've touched on this with the candidate that developed the health issue, but is there anything else that we need to know about the 1-year guarantee for placement? Or that you would like us to know about your process for that?
Of course, I'll tell you, our warranty, it really offers a lot of peace of mind when you select your candidate. It's a big decision, and we fully acknowledge that. And we certainly appreciate the trust that you place on us. And that's not something that we take lightly. So we offer a pretty robust warranty. There's a few other factors there, is that we won't approach that individual for another recruitment as long as they work for you. So we as I mentioned, they stay our friends, but we won't talk to them about another search. Secondly, is that you have our price guarantee. As I mentioned, it's all inclusive. We're not going to ask for more money, and we want you to feel comfortable with that price. And then also, like we mentioned, with this 1-year warranty, we can guarantee that if that individual is fired or if they leave within the first year, that we'll redo the search for our costs only. Now, the only stipulation to that is what we call an act of God. If the individual is, of course, death or total incapacitation, that would probably be the only stipulation. But here's the thing, folks, is that we want to take care of you. As this would be a business arrangement, we also consider it to be a coming together, with this amalgamation, that we want to make sure that you are successful, and we want to build a good relationship with you. And so we are always willing to have those good faith conversations, and we'll take care of you. You can have our promise with that.
I'm going to ask the final question here. You talked about closing on December 6th for applicants. If you had a crystal ball picking that as your closing date, when do you think final interview / selection would occur?
It's on the schedule. It's 1 week after the schedule we provided. And I have that here somewhere. Let's see. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was looking at the presentation, the additional presentation, and I think you put it in your original proposal. That's okay. We can take a look at that.
It's a week after that date. Whatever it says in the proposal, it's a week later.
The end of January would be the.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say thank you for the thoroughness of your presentation and the good conversation. I feel as though we've gotten all of our questions answered, and we will, as I said, be in touch when we've been able to come to a consensus on how we move forward. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. We look forward to talking soon.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And we thank
Appreciate
you.
your time. Yeah.
And we really want to work for you. We think Independence is a great community. And by the way, the answer to your question is January 29th and 30th.
Hey, thank you.
For interviews.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So it is now 10 a.m. and I'm going to call this next portion of this meeting to order. This is the public meeting for the subcommittee on the search for the city manager. I want to give my appreciation to the staff for setting up what is a complicated set of connections, and for that all working. We had a robust set of submissions who came in. We were delighted to find 2 candidates that we brought in for interviews, SGR being one of those. I want to recognize that we are taping this so that it'll be available for some of our other council members to review and for the public. Online is Councilmember Bryce Stewart. You want to say hi, Councilmember Stewart?
Hi.
All right, so we know he is there. I'm going to start by introducing myself, and then I'm going to let the rest of the group, which is a mixture of council members and staff, who will be helping to make this decision. So I'm Bridget McCandless. I am one of the at-large council members. Want to start there?
Sure. I'm Lisa Reynolds. I'm the deputy city manager and current interim city manager.
Morning, Rich Sassy, procurement manager.
My name is Jared Fears. I'm an at-large council member.
Good morning, I'm John Perkins, first district councilman. I represent the northwest side of Independence.
Good morning, Carissa Smith, HR director.
Good morning, I'm Suzanne Hall, city clerk.
Good morning, I am Charlie DeSalle, assistant city manager for the city.
I'm Jason Newkirk, IT director.
And also online, we have Mike Jackson, who's a member of this committee. Want to say hi?
Mike Jackson, I'm the Director of Municipal Services.
And
We also have Councilmember Vaught.
Oh, and Councilmember Vaught? You want to say hello? She's on mute, so we're going to leave her alone and proceed from here and hope that she can hear. We appreciate you being here. I see that you're sharing your screen, so you have a PowerPoint, but we will let you introduce yourselves and take it away from here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, committee members, council people, staff. It's great to see a robust and diverse committee considering this selection. It's an important one for sure and touches all parts of independence, and appreciate the opportunity for SGR to share a little bit about ourselves. You're not unfamiliar with SGR as we've been working with independents for many years, and currently we have an interim police chief in place there. So we thank you very much for considering us for this. My name is Rebecca Fleury. I am the president of executive recruitment for SGR. I'm a retired city manager, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I'll let Billy introduce himself as well.
Good morning. My name is Billy Owens. I'm a senior vice president of executive recruitment for one of ours here at SGR, and I'm also a former local government employee of 17 years, and we're happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And yes, we are sharing our screen. If anything goes amiss, please feel free to let me know. You know, it's always that first click that's a challenge, but once we get through that, hopefully, there we go. We got our first click in. So just a little more about my background. I was 25 plus years in local government. I'm a retired city manager from Battle Creek, Michigan. I retired there at the end of 24 as the longest serving city manager there. I certainly am a member of ICMA and my credentialed manager there. It's really important. I say all of this not as a brag, but it's to demonstrate that SGR was founded by a retired city manager and on the principles of servant leadership and about relationships. Ron Hollifield, our founder, realized early on that practitioners make really good recruiters because we've sat in the seat of almost every position in local government. And when you sit in the city manager's seat, I believe it helps bring that perspective to the committee and to the community when you go to select a search firm, because it's about a relationship between the search firm and you as the search committee and the elected body and the staff, and the relationships with all of you, as well as the candidates that will consider independence as a possibility for them to move to. So really everything for us is around relationships. So our mission is really simple. It's just to help communities succeed. And to do that, I think we have the experience and the staff and the commitment to helping communities find that ideal candidate. Thanks. So I wanted to say, I was leading right into that next slide, is that it isn't just about placing the, yes, did that move?
Your slides are not advancing. Is that
boy.
something on our end?
Oh boy, let's see. It could be. Are you seeing any slides?
If you click present in Teams in your upper right-hand corner on the PowerPoint, then you should be good to go.
Okay, let me try that. Wow, they're sure advancing for me. Let me see if I can go backwards. I apologize. Thank you for saying something. Go ahead.
So yeah, so at least what we're seeing, we're just seeing your PowerPoint, like not in presentation mode.
Not in presentation mode. Okay, so you're seeing me share screen. What do you see? Just an intro slide?
Yes.
Give those directions.
But yeah, in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Of my presentation?
PowerPoint, yeah. PowerPoint, yep, just up right there. See where it says present in Teams? Try clicking.
You're seeing something I see my cursor on the slide and I click it and it goes to the next one. Let me see.
If you just hit escape, Rebecca, it'll probably bring you back to this screen. You should be able to see it.
Oh. Let's see. It's always something. Sorry about that. I do apologize for this. I haven't had this problem before. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and see if I can't correct that. All right.
If it makes you feel any better, this is all of our worst nightmares. So we're just.
Well, I'm glad it's happening to me and not you. But we certainly know in the virtual environment that these things can happen, and I appreciate you bearing with me here. See. I'm trying to get to that location where you were saying I could share in Teams. I just don't necessarily, oh.
We're at
Okay,
least seeing PowerPoint now. Yeah, you
Okay,
could
so I
just leave
might-
it on here if you want to.
yeah, let's do that, and let's make sure I can get to the next slide. Did it advance?
Yes.
Can you make it
Fabulous. Well, you'll just see some notes and et cetera, so don't worry about that, but I'm glad it's advancing. So I think I got to this part when I was talking. So I was giving you a history of a little bit about SGR's philosophy on searches, and it doesn't really matter what search that we're doing, whether it's a city manager, whether it's a department head, whether it's an E911 director. We just want to help a community and a candidate succeed. And that doesn't stop when a candidate is placed. So we have lots of services that we offer local governments. As you know, you've participated in a lot of our searches, and we appreciate that greatly. But this is just a cycle that demonstrates that SGR really wants to be a full service partner with municipalities. Click a different way here. Okay. So currently SGR has over 700 local government clients in 47 states. And we look at all of our business lines. Certainly executive recruitment is probably our biggest business line, but we also have, as I shared, we have an interim and embedded services division, as well as a facilitation and consultant division that works with elected bodies and staff on strategic planning and things of that nature. But certainly our executive recruitment is our biggest. One of the things that we have learned as technology advances is the importance of digital marketing. So if you're familiar, when SGR was created, we also created a 10 and 10. That is subscribed by over 40,000 subscribers throughout the country, which is our weekly newsletter. It's tips and information that we've gleaned over the past week as we are out in the field, as our CEO and founder are out meeting people on their road trips. We continue to get people to subscribe to our e-newsletter. We have over 5,000 individuals who are subscribed to receive our notifications that we have city manager searches in play, and related searches, whether that's department heads or et cetera, as I talked before. But just 5,000 who have specifically subscribed to us to see our job board, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. We have about 1,000 visitors to our Open Recruitment's web page monthly, which is important for us to continue to do as much as we can from a two-way interaction from kind of a static platform like like our website. But quickly we learned the importance of social media marketing. And so we have over 21,000 LinkedIn followers. So we're trying to pair our digital marketing with our social media footprint to attract the best candidates that we can. We also do direct candidate sourcing through LinkedIn Recruiter. This has become a really big deal for us, candidate sourcing. We are out there seeking candidates that may not necessarily know they're seeking jobs right now, but we can pair them through LinkedIn Recruiter to the job description that the community is looking for. We match your job description with the candidates out there, even if they may not necessarily be looking. We are proactive in that, because if we find a candidate through our sourcing in LinkedIn, we will reach out to see if perhaps they are thinking about a different place to call home for work. So we have a lot of qualified candidate pools that we tap into. I hinted and noted about our job board, but the SGR job board is the #2 active job board in the entire country, only second to the federal government's job board. So we get about 28,000 job views, and in the last 30 days, it has been 28,000, almost 500 job alert subscribers. So not only are we hitting the job board statically and with active recruitments, every time one of our LinkedIn partners sees it, that's also shared. So we're not only getting 500 jobs alert, then everybody else is sharing that. So when I talk about the fact that SGR is made up of practitioners from local government, we also have vast networks on our digital platforms and through LinkedIn that we are sharing that as well. So we get that force multiplier effect as we push out the jobs that we are actively seeking to fill. Another thing that we're really, really big on is making sure that we're getting client feedback. And when I say client and candidate feedback, because the relationships that SGR has as a recruitment firm with the client is really important, as well as the relationship with the candidates. We want everybody to have a positive experience through our process. So we're constantly seeking feedback to make sure that we are making changes in areas that perhaps people are not having a positive experience with us. And so when we get client feedback, it's really important that we share that. So this is client feedback from probably the last 3 years up and through March of 2025. And so when we ask our clients, do you feel comfortable recommending our services to your peers or fellow elected officials? Overwhelmingly, over 80% say yes, absolutely, we would refer SGR and their services to our network. So we ask them too, would you consider us for future recruitment? You can see we're still well into the 80% there as well. But I say it's important to have a good client feedback. It's also important to have good candidate feedback. So when we ask candidates very pointed questions about, would you apply for another recruitment conducted by SGR? When we get into that 70% range, that's a good thing for us. Because remember, we're asking not only the candidates that was selected, but the candidates that weren't selected. We want feedback from both because that relationship is key for us as an executive recruitment firm. And then lastly, did our team treat you with honor, dignity, and respect? And that's really important to us as well. As you can see, we hit nearly that 80%. And then, would you apply for another recruitment? Again, conducted by SGR. We love the fact that we're over 70% here. When I talk about I'll talk about the background team. It's one of the things that drew me to SGR is not only the team of practitioners, but we also have an incredible backbone support team. Our executive recruitment team and our recruitment coordinators, they're in the background supporting the client and the recruiter to make sure that you have all the information that you need, but we also make sure that you have all the information on the candidates as well. So that when we get to, the semifinal and finalist round, everybody understands where they're at, what they need, what tools they need, the resources they need, so that we provide that to you as the client to make, to help you make the best, most informed decision that you can. This is a huge decision when you talk about the city manager role for independence. And we want you to be confident that we have a full team ready to serve you. As I talked about candidate sourcing, we want you to know that our typical semifinalists grouping is mostly direct outreach by SGR. When I talk about candidate sourcing and how we go about that, we know that through our 10 in 10, our social media, our email, and our personal contacts, over 47% of our semifinalists come from that direct outreach. I think that's huge, and it demonstrates that we have a very large pool and we can cast a wide net to find the best candidate for independence. Our other sources, meaning our website, your website, personal contacts, and colleague networks, that's about 35% of our semifinalists. And then between national trade advertisements and state trade advertisements, that would be, for example, your municipal league. That would be the Black Public Administrators Forum. That would be the Hispanic Network. That would be League of Women Governors and Women in Government. All of those trade publications that we connect through you and through our networks help us get a very robust semifinalist pool. And just to show you that, we are nationwide, we took a look at where in Missouri, where in the Midwest that we have done our most recent engagements. And as you can see, we have been in, dozens of Midwest communities. We've been in Michigan, we've been in Missouri, we've been in Minnesota and Kansas. All of these, I think, help us with a good footprint in the Midwest. I'm a Midwest former city manager. We know sometimes it's difficult to recruit in areas that get snow. I don't know why snow is a bad word for some, but that weather can be challenging. And so I feel like we have a good footprint in the Midwest of candidates that we can tap into for roles. So certainly we have done several recruitments in Missouri. We've been in Independence and other areas and have been successful placing candidates. Now I'm going to actually turn it over to Billy. He and I, if selected, will be tag teaming as the recruitment team for Independence. And so I'm going to turn it over to him, and we're going to kind of finish out the presentation and then make sure we get to your questions. Billy, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Again, my name is Billy Owens. I've spent 17 years in local government service in the North Texas area, some of it in emergency management as well as city administration. And I'm just happy to be here with you guys. So the differentiators for us at SGR, kind of what you're looking for, what you get from us, is we're very proactive about feedback and client relations. We want to know not only from the clients themselves, but also from the applicants, how they felt about the process overall, how they felt about the communication, because we know that repeat customers is what keeps us going and makes us worth the investment. We also are about extensive stakeholder engagement. We want to make sure that what you're looking for is what we're looking for you. Not everything is, apples to apples. Different organizations are different. Somebody in the Valley of South Texas and somebody in Northern California are not going to be looking for the same things in their city management. So we want to make sure we know what your situations are and what you want from this process. As Rebecca said, we have a nationwide reach all over the United States. It's very busy on our job board as well as our networking aspects. So we very much are pushing to make sure that we're looking for people all over the nation for you, not just in your backyard. We're also practitioners. A lot of us, Rebecca and I both, are from local governments. We understand that it's a different world, and many people who may have not been in the world before don't know how different it can be. And it's a whole different set of give and take and understanding the balance between the situation. And we also know it's our primary objective to find the right leader for you. We know that picking leadership and management as a whole doesn't come around that often in local government. Sometimes it's 5, 10, 15, 25 years, depending on what the position is. So we know this is your opportunity to affect change and to shift things that you want for the future. Another thing is our extensive candidate vetting. We make sure we check everyone out, make sure there's nothing that slips through the cracks, that there's no surprises for any of us, because we want to make sure that the client we're presenting to you guys is the right one as well. So our methodology and kind of our process here at SGR, initial steps prior to posting, it takes about 2-3 weeks. We'll have a kickoff meeting after the contract execution, in which we'll discuss kind of the expectations, what you're looking for, and then we'll have stakeholder interviews within your agency. That could be people who work for the city, could also be people outside of the city who have interest in it, say different groups or organizations. And then from that, we'll draft your recruitment brochure, which will be used to push out to sell the position to the applicants. We'll also deliver recommended ad placements, show you where we recommend placing it, and those are open for adjustment as well, with the discussion of where you would like them. You approve that process, and then we start the process of campaigning. The recruitment campaign takes about 4 to 5 weeks, essentially 30 days or so when we post the position, to kind of make sure we're getting as many people applying as possible. We'll post the timelines and share that information with you, as well as make sure we're sharing all of our marketing information with your social media teams to know that they're filled in for what's going on. We want to make sure you're helping as well as far as being connected and coordinated with this search process. After that's happened, we go through the initial applicants, and you'll select finalists, and we'll have recorded one-way semifinalist interviews, and we'll start the media searches as well on our end. Okay, Rebecca lost her microphone. So with that, we will do media searches for each candidate to try to get as much information as possible that's out there for these candidates to see what has come up with them in the past. From there, if we did the recorded online interviews, you could do online interviews or you can do virtual online interviews. It's really up to the agency. If they're online, we will deliver those to you to review, and then the committee will give us recommendations and grading for the finalists. After that, the final process, the 4 weeks, is the kind of the hiring of the finalists. So from there, we produce background investigation reports, DISC management assessments, if it's desired by the organization. We have them present a first-year plan, if that's something you guys are looking for, where they can produce work product and kind of the goals of the organization and the agency. We produce a finalist briefing book, which we'll present to the agency, that has information that we've collected on each finalist for everyone to take a look at. We'll also help coordinate face-to-face interviews, as well as stakeholder engagement if desired. If you are looking to have town hall meetings with the finalists, that's something we can help coordinate with as far as getting those in play to make sure those are happening. We'll be checking reference checks, negotiations, and the whole hiring process as a whole. Rebecca, you're still without microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you. Sorry, all of a sudden everybody went silent. Continue, but I think I moved on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the full service recruitment cost for us is $27,919. This includes $2,500 in ad placements for associations and job boards not affiliated with us, 12-month placement guarantee, no additional professional fees or expenses only, and does not include recruiter or candidate travel expenses or any supplemental services or additional ad placements you may desire over $2,500. So there are some a la carte services you can add to the system as far as changes, and that's really up to you what you would like to change, but this is kind of the comprehensive pricing for everything.
I wanted to add too is we really try to tailor our proposals to client. We start, but if there are services you wish to add or remove, we want to make sure that we're tailoring our proposal to your needs. So if there is something that, that you don't see reflected or you do, please let us know, because we want to adjust to that. What we're finding is, and as Billy said, there is no city that's exactly the same. You know what you and your elected body and your community and your staff want to see. We want to help you get there. So please know, we do our best to tailor needs, and we can discuss that, at the time if you so desire and choose SGR.
So SGR's 5 keys to successful search.
Sorry, I'll go back. Hang on.
One more. So it's just kind of the basis of how we do it. We take that understanding of your culture and community. That's essential to building this application and this process. We want to know who Independence is, what they're looking for, and how they're going to do it. We take the marketing and put that to a national level to make sure we're pushing it out to all the candidates that can do it. And we also make sure we're vetting these candidates very down to the last detail to make sure we're not missing anything, because we don't want to do the same thing as you guys are, is presenting a candidate we think everything is great to find out something in the end. So it's our best interest to make sure that that is cleared up for everything. We want to make sure the candidate also understands your organization and they're not looking for something else altogether, and they understand what your organization wants. And then also just trying to make the process as smooth as possible. Our goal is to make it easy and as easy as possible, because we know that's the benefit you have of going with a search firm. And especially with SGR, we understand that how the local government industry and organizations work, and we want to make sure we make that as easy as possible for you.
So from Billy and I, we just want to thank you for this opportunity. It's a big decision. We're grateful that SGR is being considered. I think the one thing I wanted to stress too is because all of our clients are public sector clients. That's our main business. That's what we were founded on. And so it matters, the relationships that we have. And we want to use that to leverage to help you find the best next city manager for Independence. And you have a lot going on. I appreciate the sharing of some questions, and you're probably going to get into that, but you have a lot of synergy going on. Just because there's been change, particularly in your community leadership, doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. Lots of times change in leadership is a good indicator to a candidate out there looking for a change. Just as an example, when I took my job and when I was awarded the job in Battle Creek, Michigan, they had recently gone through a very large leadership change. The head of the community college, the head of the economic development organization, the superintendent of schools, all were brand new within the last the last 6 months, from the last 6 months from when I started. And I found that to be helpful and refreshing. We were all learning new and together. And so that's what, was Billy talking about, is we want to tailor the search to whatever your needs are so that we understand where Independence is at this time, but also the candidates understand where Independence is at time. So it's a both and. Everybody we want to make sure that it's a good match and fit. Working with you as your search firm. So please, I didn't know if you want us to go right into some of the things that you mentioned in the email, Chair, but however you want to ask us questions would be great.
Well, we're going to share the joy of asking questions, and some of those things will be touched on as we get through these questions. We'll start with Councilmember Perkins. Councilmember Fears. Wrong guy, James.
All right. Thank you. Well, appreciate the information you shared. Certainly helpful. A couple of thoughts or a couple of questions that I would maybe ask at this point, and that would be if you just kind of review again your approach to recruitment and candidate sourcing and that piece of it. And then the other question that maybe I would have is that we got information about Billy being a point person on this. Rebecca, we didn't get that information about you. And I just kind of wonder how you two are going to work together.
Sure, that's a great question. Billy, do you want to go first or would you like me?
Sure, either way, go ahead.
Sure. So let me start with the candidate sourcing first. So we not only tap into our current network of candidates, that was the, probably 4,000 number, but we're also actively using LinkedIn Recruiter. So there we could take the job description and the community profile and all of the information that's shared from Independence. And we put it into the system and we match candidates. Again, it may be candidates that are looking and are actively on our candidate search list. It may be candidates that not necessarily are looking, but because they fit the profile that Independence is looking for, we will make a direct reach out to them to see if they might be interested in applying for the Independent City Manager role. So, we use a variety of things. We have a database of candidates that are actively looking, but we also then look for candidates they may not be. We'll look not only within Independence, we'll look within your region, and then we'll continue to go out nationwide. More and more we're finding a wide, a diverse pool of candidates looking to be a city manager. And we keep relationships right along, even if perhaps they weren't successful or selected in the last search they were in, but they know that we will continue to use them when their skill set matches a community skill set. So it's about first learning from you what you're looking for in your next city manager specifically, and then matching those with the candidate pools that we have, and the vast networks that SGR has throughout their recruiters. So that's that. Did you have any other questions for candidate sourcing, or I can go into the other one?
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, sure. You're welcome. So you're right. Billy is going to be the lead recruiter on this, and I will be helping him. A lot of times we tag team. Billy's relatively new with SGR, but frankly, so am I. But because I want to be a working leader in executive recruiting, I'll get involved when I think it can be helpful. Right now, particularly in the Midwest, it's really helpful to have experience in that geographic region to draw from a wide pool. So I will be helping on this particular one. I know that we had originally talked with Lynn Barbosa, but she has had some changes to her schedule. And so what we do is we align a recruiter with what meets the needs of the client. So at the time, even before, we are selected, at the time we're being considered, because we want the community to know that we're putting, our best recruiter forward with the greatest experience to help you find the right and successful candidate. I think it also helps to get a larger candidate pool when, you have Billy's experience and my experience together, so that we can tag team stakeholder interviews, we can tag team candidate sourcing, we can work together to make sure that we work with you and understand what that community brochure looks like and the entire profile for the recruitment. So really it's aligning skill sets and experience with what, we think would be successful in independence.
Hi, this is John. Just to follow up just a little bit more. We're a pretty diverse community. We have a strong Hispanic, Latino community that has grown over the last 10 to 12 years, a very strong Polynesian community as well. So in regards to the ad placement, how will you be able to put those ad placements to help reflect some of that diversity?
Sure. You would take that, Rebecca?
Thanks, Billy.
So
Yep.
we can definitely take the ad placements however you'd like. If you have agencies and organizations and specific groups you want to make sure we're covering, such as Hispanic groups and Polynesian groups, it's definitely something we can tailor to make sure we're pushing out. It really comes down to the needs of your community and the interests, and it's definitely an easily made change to make sure we're including those people you'd like to include.
Let me just add to that too, John, if I might. Because we have such vast networks personally and professionally, we are connected and stay connected to, to all of the groups through state associations, international organizations, and et cetera, including keeping membership in those organizations so that they know we're actively using them to try to find candidates that meet what the community is looking for. Everybody wants their city manager to reflect their community, and we do our best to connect with those associations nationwide, and in some ways international. I say international because currently we're doing the City of Portland's city administrator search, and we've had international candidates apply there. So we just want to make sure that we are we're casting a net to get any candidate that you would seek that would best fit in your community, particularly with the diversity that you shared that you have.
Oh, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to us how other cities have used the DISC assessment?
Sure. I can talk about that from a recruiter as well as a candidate as well. Sometimes it helps for a tool like the DISC to help from a personality assessment. Because what we've learned in this business for nearly 50 years is that it's all about the fit. And sometimes it's helpful to go through a tool like DISC or Myers-Briggs to see how candidates align with your organization, with your executive leadership team, with the culture of all of your teams, with your community. There are just some hiring bodies that feel like that's an additional tool that can help them make an informed decision. Not everyone uses it, and you will get some that say, that's not a great tool to be able to vet candidates. But anyway, we want to make sure that we offer all the tools that would help independents feel comfortable in assessing candidates. Because when you get down to kind of the semi-finalist list and then to the finalist list, there could be two very similar candidates, but something like the DISC tool could help distinguish that, hey, this candidate's personality seems to align better with our team than this candidate. And that could be a deciding factor. Not always, but it's just another tool that you can use to help you make that decision.
Thank you.
You're welcome. culture is huge in local government, and some find that that personality assessment helps them understand how the candidate might fit in the culture of the city, just as an addition.
Thank you. How will we get a sense of the candidate's writing and communication style?
Did you say writing and communication style?
Yeah.
Yeah. Billy, do you want to take?
Sure. So it really will come down to, the way we'll craft questions and work. So if you're going from either semifinalist to finalist, starting with the semifinalist process, we will present a questionnaire to them, a set of questions, as well as requests for the recorded or in-person virtual interviews, where we'll kind of ask them the same thing to kind of give them time to craft those messages. From there, there'll also be opportunity from the finalist level to produce either a first year work program where they'll put on the process of kind of showing what their first steps would be through that first year, as well as we have plenty of opportunity to request additional information and guidance as far as what you were looking for in that. If there's specific things you want to see, writing, contracts, things like that, we can definitely work on that as far as producing those work products. And it really comes down to what Rebecca said, is just tailoring it to your needs. If there's something you want to make sure you're specifically seeing, or something you guys have seen in the past that may have been a hurdle or a road, a speed bump, we want to make sure that we're eliminating that for you.
It has really been a variety of actions that we've seen communities use from a writing perspective. We've seen, asking about what do your first 90 days look like? So you're looking at kind of the critical thinking and then how they put that into written form. Or it could be something very specific. For example, you were talking about a new leadership in your CVB. So maybe it's something around tourism, anything that you are looking for to help you understand how they communicate both verbally and written. We want to help you find. So, we can really tailor that. We can share some examples that we've used in the past, like I just said, whether it's a first 90-day work plan, whether it's addressing something specific. You have an interim police chief. Maybe you want them to describe what a search for the next police chief would look like. Any and all things that are very specific to independence, I think, is a very fair ask from a written perspective from a candidate.
Have you found those task-based work plan? I'll throw one out. We have a number of outside investors who are coming in and buying up a lot of property. So giving the one that's generic so that it's not across a particular department, do you find that that helps the council, or is that just a distraction in their evaluation?
Wow, that's a really good question. And I'm not sure, I don't think it's as easy for like Billy or I to answer. If it's important for you to understand kind of their philosophy around economic and community development, particularly with new investments coming in, I think that's a valid ask and could be really helpful to the hiring committee and then ultimately the elected body. If that is a priority, again, you get to define what the priority is and how you glean that from the candidate, whether it's in written form or whether it's a specific question you ask in a semifinalist round or a finalist round. I think looking at it from several angles is very helpful. I found that helpful for me as a city manager when I was hiring a department head, to have both asking for a written response to a very specific case study or question, as well as some follow-up, candid interview direct questions.
Well, this is John again. So a little bit of a timeline and some issues that we are having, say issues. We have an election cycle that we're just at the beginning start of. So some advice from you. We will have elections in February with a primary and a general election in April to replace the mayor and for 2 at-large council seats. We're coming up into the holiday season can you talk about the timeline and your recommendations, including the pros and cons of these various timelines? Have an election cycle and then the holiday replacement.
Sure. Well, please know that an election cycle is very familiar to anybody who is applying for a city manager role. It as candidates research communities, they're going to already look at that. Okay, so where are we in the election cycle? When is the next election? How many of the elected body seats are open? So I wouldn't necessarily be concerned that you have an election coming up because it's part of the world. It's part of being a chief administrative official in a unit of local government. But please know that candidates will also then not only look to the future, but they'll look to the past as well. What has the body been working on up until this point? How well has the body been working together? What's highlighted in social media or in media in general, types of things. So it's really you're going to check them out and they're going to check you out on a variety of things. But from that elected timeline, I don't necessarily see that as a negative. Candidates are already going to know that. And they're going to take that into account as they consider whether or not they're going to apply. And it really doesn't necessarily matter how many seats are up. So for example, mine in Battle Creek, I had 9, 5 ward, 3 at large, and a direct elect mayor. All 9 had 2-year terms, so they were up every time. You would have think that would scare off candidates, but it really doesn't. They just want to know kind of what is the elected body environment that they're considering. So I don't look at that as a negative, and change happens. We know, I can only tell you how many how many commissioners in my town, commissioners they were called, I worked with over the years. So that's kind of part of the business. And if somebody really is worried or concerned about that, you got to wonder what kind of candidate they are and where have they served previously. That's just, my thought. From the holiday perspective, that's always a challenge, and not necessarily from candidates, but it's, can you get your stakeholders together? Can you make sure that you have quorums at the meeting, and can you get information exchanged quickly when we know people pause and take some time during the holidays, which you should. We want, you to take care of the whole person. But we would have to consider that in, kind of in the time frame, because as we get to the end of November until the very first of the year, that's when we have, I think our process goes a little bit slower, but it doesn't stop. Some people are very engaged during the holiday time from a candidate perspective. And really, we take our cue from the client as to what it looks like during a holiday season if we're in an active search. So if you can get all of your teams together, we can make sure that the process continues. And it isn't a big negative, or there's just a standstill of work being done. I don't foresee that as an issue.
Well, thank you for that. A quick follow-up, Rebecca. So also with the election, we're going to be moving into a budget process. So our budget ends on June 30th and begins on July 1st. So the possible placement of a new city manager would fall within that. Is there any concerns you can think of about them maybe not having as much of a strong hand in the current budget?
Really good question. And budget is one of the biggest documents that a city manager works on to present to the elected body for consideration. Not really. You describe a fiscal year that's very common to a lot of city manager candidates. So, I think that's anticipated as a candidate. It certainly was for me and candidates that I've worked with. So no, not necessarily. Again, they're going to lean in on your current team, your finance director, and all of those staff members who are integral to the budget process, but isn't necessarily a problem coming in, like, let's say, the 1st of 2025, when you have a budget, to present and get approved by June 30th. Certainly, that could be an excellent written question or verbal question for a candidate. How would you approach the budget if you came in January knowing that we have to have a budget approved by June 30th? We kind of turn those into opportunities to learn more about the candidate. And not necessarily do we see that as a, a hiccup or a roadblock to candidates, putting their name in the pool.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, moving on to kind of how we would handle the interview and interaction process when we bring the candidates in. I think the first question we have is how can we involve key members of our staff in the selection, knowing that we have a staff of probably about 1,000 within the city, and then we have a leadership team of department heads and city management that's somewhere between 15 and 20, I would say. So just kind of curious how we involve all aspects of staff in the process.
Sure. We take that, Rebecca. I can take it.
Yep, go ahead, Bill.
So really would just come down to tailoring your needs. Just like Rebecca said, we're here to work around what you guys would like to see and how you'd like to be involved. With such a large group, we would definitely break it into smaller groups to kind of make sure we're capturing that information, capturing their input and kind of what they're looking for in their next leadership. Also, as far as going through semifinalists and finalists, you can kind of choose who you'd like to be involved in that process as far as at what steps. And some organizations, we may just take advisory information. You may have a group of people you just would like to have kind of a general consensus from, and you may have some directors and other ones you'd like to have specifics from. So we can really tailor it to your needs as far as capturing that information and boiling it down. We want to make sure we're capturing that full picture on the leadership as far as what the department needs, what the city needs, what they're looking for. So we will definitely condense and meet with as many people as we can to make sure we are checking all those boxes and including everyone who needs to be included. We don't want anyone to feel left out in the process, and we don't want anyone to feel like their information is, or their voice isn't being heard. So it's our goal to make it as fluid as possible and as inclusive as possible to everyone.
And I think that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just to follow up on that process, are you guys coming to town to do this, or is all this done, virtually, or how do you typically do that?
That is totally up to you. We've done both, or we've done a hybrid where we've done some things virtually and some things in person. And that's really based on, what the client wants. I wanted to go back to what Billy was saying is the fact that you are including staff in this decision of a search firm speaks volumes about the City of Independence, and candidates will look at that. So you want to continue that engagement throughout the interview, throughout the candidate vetting process, all the way to semifinalists, finalists. So, I support what Billy said is we want to engage stakeholders and staff at every level, or whatever your direction is throughout the process. So please know we'll take the cue from you, and we've done it in a variety of ways, whether candidates come in and meet with your executive leadership team of the city, whether they meet with community stakeholders, or you do that virtually and then in person as you get down to just the smaller number of semifinalists and finalists. Really that's driven by you and how you want interaction in the process.
All right, can you tell us how you've engaged with the public in past searches, and then just kind of let us know what you might recommend for us?
Sure. So it's very similar to the kind of the internal candidates as well. Any of those groups and agencies, nonprofits, civic organizations, whatever it is that's involved in your city, we want to make sure they're plugged in and involved. We can set up town hall meetings with candidates. We can also set up initial meetings about just getting input, just like we are from internal city departments and stakeholders. We want to make sure that everyone's being included in that voice. And also when it comes time to reviewing those finalist positions, if you guys choose to do town halls, we make sure they're invited and brought to the table so they're comfortable with those candidates that are being presented for city administration. It's that comprehensive thing of making sure we're providing what your city wants and how you want to see it done, and which organizations you feel like can add a great voice to the process.
You probably already have some formats that you've used in Independence that we could just tap into from a recruiter and a candidate perspective. So again, I agree with Billy. We just want to do what makes the most sense. I mean, some of the examples that we've used is, we'll take finalist candidates and we'll set them at tables in a community room and allow community members to basically go from table to table to ask, a free flowing conversation with candidates. And then, then as they're done, they would give you, they would provide written comments, or they check a box that says, I like candidate A. And you can use that, so again, we've got a variety of formats that we could use or propose, but taking the cue from all of you is the best approach.
Could you describe what you mean by town hall and how you think that would go about engaging people?
Sure, go ahead, Billy.
Sure. So really, again, it's from our perspective, it would just be a public meeting for them to come and visit the candidates as we present finalists, or beforehand, if you'd like to collect information, we would set that up as far as putting information out there as far as here's finalists for the city administrator for Independence, Missouri, and we're looking at getting input from the public for them to meet and greet and kind of discuss things with the candidates. It would really kind of be like similar to probably how town halls may have been done in the past for different city, bond proposals or other organizations with that. Just kind of basing it out of inviting everyone, pushing the information out, and kind of just giving them a space to ask those questions and be included with it. But we would definitely work hand in hand with city staff to kind of tailor that process as far as what works for your agency and your city to make sure we are doing the most effective thing for the city.
And building off of what Billy said too is it can be as formal or informal as you want. Really, your community best and how how residents engage in governmental processes. And we would simply follow that format. But it could be, again, just a conversation. It could be kind of, we called it speed dating kind of thing, where you put them at tables and people go around, or it could be a very structured presentation where you have given the candidates, whether they're semifinalists or finalists, a very specific presentation to give or questions to answer, and then have feedback from those participating. So that's kind of what we think of when we say a town hall. But again, we want to make sure we understand how has Independence handled town halls in the past. Follow that format closely if that makes sense.
Thank you. Marissa?
How do you help a candidate get a sense of the city?
I'm sorry, did you say how do you help a candidate?
Yes. How do you help a candidate get a sense of the city?
Okay, so great question. And I think it's all about relationships. So as a recruiter, we're going to have lots of conversations with candidates as they come into the process. So that includes certainly going over the community brochure, what's in writing, but then also share anything that we have learned while we are studying and understanding Independence as well. So again, this is about fit. We want them to know what type of community Independence is. We're going to be sharing things that you have shared with us, like the new CVB director, or where you have interim assignments, where there's other leaders in the community that have had change. We're going to make sure they know what the Independence election cycle looks like, and then who would be up mayor and at large, et cetera. And we're going to be open for all their questions. And if they ask us questions that we can't answer, we're going to come back to the search committee and say, okay, this candidate had this really good question. How do we respond, type of thing. So really, we act as the recruiter, but also we represent the client and the candidate. So free flowing of information between all to help the candidate understand Independence and help you all understand the candidates.
So we know that people's families are really important to their success in any position. How do you go about engaging the spouse or the family that might be coming with them? Do you do tours with them? Do you do dinners with them? How do you engage them and the candidate to meet sort of the broader community than just the people interviewing?
Great question. I don't know. I thought you were going to say something, Billy. I don't want to.
No, yeah, so definitely just kind of the same way, we definitely encourage spouses to come with the candidates for those in-person interviews to make sure they are being included and checking out the situation. As we all know, we all have jobs and careers, and we want to make sure our family is also included in these huge decisions. So our goal is to be there and make sure that if they have any questions, they have any information, we want to make sure they're taking it out. We do want to make sure those tours and those things that the spouses can be included on as well, because we know it's not just generally a single person moving for a new position. It's going to be a whole family. So it is our goal to make sure they're being included and being informed as much as possible, and there as much as the process, so they don't feel like they're being left out of the situation as well, that it is not a singular decision, because we know it is, it's a two-way situation with the hiring as well. Whereas Independence is hiring their new administrator, the new administrator is making sure Independence is the right place for them. So we want to make sure that they have all their questions answered, and anything we can do to just help facilitate that, we're going to do to make sure it works out.
Oftentimes, while the candidates are going through their very structured and formalized process, we'll try to connect partners, spouses, et cetera, with maybe the CVB or maybe a realtor or maybe schools, so that they can see, they can be doing some intel themselves about the community and, and the fit for them as a family, and whatever family that might look like. So oftentimes we'll help facilitate those connections for partners, spouses, significant others, but while we focus then on getting the candidates through the process with the search committee, et cetera. Not that we leave that out. Our primary goal will be to address the candidates, but we will make sure that the spouse, the partner, significant other is having an experience to getting to know Independence. And we would look to, to staff and to stakeholders and to elected body to help us connect with those so they could have an experience as well. So it is a package. You bring your family goes through this with you just as you do if you're a candidate. So it's important to include and recognize them and help them, get a sense of Independence, when that time comes, if they're in that semifinalist or finalist list.
And since we've talked about family being successful piece of the transition, can you talk about post-placement follow-up and support? These can be awfully lonely positions, and it's a whole lot of change for both the staff here and for the new person coming in. And what sorts of supports do you provide, or could you coach us on providing?
Great question. And you're right. Oftentimes it can feel isolating and lonely when you come in to, to a new job, the top role. So that's what I love about SGR. It's one of the things that drew me to the company, is because they do look at the person as a whole. So just because we've placed somebody in the seat doesn't mean that, we don't continue to follow in whatever capacity that is. And again, we'll take some direction from all of you, because there are some coaching things that we can provide to help support the candidate, but there are some things that we can directly support the candidate themselves, whether that's through coaching and mentoring, whether it's working through a strategic plan or visioning session as the new administration with the team. Lots of opportunities to support the person individually, or help the person acclimate themselves into the organization and with the elected body. Again, we don't want to overstep, but we have the tools and the resources to support that candidate throughout, their tenure in the role. We want them to be successful and beat the average of the chief administrative role of 3 to 5 years and get that, to stay longer. But, we have a variety of those, or we can talk with you about that. We've even seen, in an employment agreement, a body will write in there, that to get them a job coach, or to connect with to someone that can help support them in that role. There's a variety of tools and things that we could talk about once the candidate is selected, so that continue a relationship for as long as it makes sense.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the average tenure of a city manager. Can you talk to us about the average length of stay that you've seen from the candidates you placed over the last 5 years?
Yeah, I saw that question earlier. That's a tough data point. to track, and we are attempting to track it. I think I'm positive in saying that for the most part, our candidates do fall within the 3 to 5 years, but there's so many things. I mean, because every candidate is different. So just because a candidate doesn't make it the 3 to 5 years, it could be for a variety of reasons. And this is a different environment in local government management than even when I came in, 26 years ago. That's why it's so important to build the relationships and find the fit, up front, so that only encourages, more lengthy tenures. But we're also seeing candidates come in that are coming in from non-traditional paths. I mean, I started my career as a teacher. I was a non-traditional path into the city manager role. And, we want to recognize that as well. And that's why it's so important that we go through the whole fit review during the recruitment process, because a lot of times we can make sure to the best of our ability that we find a candidate that will stay. But we're seeing candidates, make a variety of decisions to come to a new organization or to leave an organization different than we've seen in the past. And we want to recognize that and be respectful of that. But we also know there are things in place, for example, like if a candidate is an ICMA member, the code of ethics for ICMA says that you need to stay in a community for 2 years, recognizing that there's a huge learning curve when you come into a new community as a city administrator, and to give time for everyone to learn to work together. And so we certainly do support that as well. But we are monitoring our data points as far as how long our candidates remain in the position. But sometimes we don't even know our candidates have left necessarily, unless we see a flash from, that community, it no longer has a candidate. Or I just talked to somebody who was our placement. He's been there 15 years. So, I mean, it's a difficult data point, but I feel comfortable in saying that the majority of our candidates, 3 to 5 years, they make 3 to 5 years. We'd love to see them longer because we know what a value that is to a community. But I just don't have a specific percentage for you, and I apologize for that. It's a data point that we are getting better at tracking.
Thank you. In the unfortunate event that, a candidate doesn't work out, could you talk to us about what you think we need to know about your 1-year placement guarantee?
Sure. Billy, you talked about that. Do you want to take that, or I can?
Sure. Sure. Either way, you might know more details about it than I do on that part. So,
Sure.
So if a position doesn't work out within the year, we will come back to help refill that position. Rebecca, you can probably speak to the kind of details to what it entails more than I can on that part.
Yeah, sure. A lot of the times, you're not going to repay for everything, but there are some things that we will simply have to charge. So for example, some of, backgrounds and media searches, those would all have to be charged, but the professional fee would not be there. And, again, we would try to learn as much as we could about why that candidate wasn't successful. And, please know, it may have nothing to do with independence. It could be that they needed to go home for family reasons if they're not from Missouri. Do you know what I mean? So there's a variety of things that happen. So we want to basically understand why they weren't, why they chose to leave within that year, but then continue to work with independents to find that next qualified candidate. And we have been successful there. We've just seen people leave the profession in general. Has nothing to do with the community. It's just they decide that public service isn't, what they want to, they don't want their profession to be that anymore. So, which is one of the reasons why we have, a guarantee for that 1 year, because we try to, we want to come back in and help find that next successful candidate. So there are still some expenditures, but it's less than 50% of the search, depending on the number of tools that we need to use and the number of candidates that we get that second time around.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions we didn't cover?
Yeah, I have one. So how do you envision keeping us informed throughout the process?
Sure. So we will keep you informed through every step of the way. Most of the time, it will be a weekly update, if not sooner, depending on what part of the process we're in. We want to make sure that we're providing you that information as far as kind of where we are in the steps, kind of reminding you of timeline if anything has changed. Some weeks might be a little slower than others because, say, during the applicant period, we may, it's kind of up to the organization whether you would like to receive applications as you go, or if you get them all at the end of the application period after the 30 days. So if you are only getting them at the end of 30 days, those weeks might be a little quiet. We will be showing you kind of what's going on and how we're collecting data and then presenting those all at once at the end, versus if you choose to get them weekly, we can produce those as well and have weekly reports as far as who's applied to that point with kind of some basic information. So really, we'll be in constant contact. If something is going on or something changes, you have questions, we're here to answer anything you may have, and we'll do our best to produce, information weekly, if not more frequent than that, just to make sure you are informed of the process, how it's going, anything that may have unexpectedly changed. When we get towards the end of the process, it'll probably be more frequent just because we'll be working with semifinalists and then ultimately finalists. And so we'll just do our best to make sure you're included in all the information and you know as much as we do about the process.
It's a two-way too. I mean, if you're hearing things, please, we want to know about that. And if we're hearing things, we want you to know about it. It's really how often you want the information. We're excited that we have a new recruit platform that we're using that really leverages technology so we can get, we can move through the process quicker. We can get information to you quicker. We have a new client and candidate portal, that we can share information. Really, we just want to make sure that it's two-way and ongoing throughout the entire process. We would rather over communicate than under communicate.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to say thank you for giving us so much of your time for your organized presentation. And we will be back with you quickly. Quickly for us is promised within 7 days. We will have a decision because obviously things have to go to a vote of the council. But please reach out if you have other questions, and we just really appreciate your candor and time.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was a pleasure to talk with all of you. And it's a tough decision. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've restarted the recording for the discussion portion after we've concluded the interviews of Colin Basinger and SGR. To recap, we heard that people appreciated the data points that SGR brought, the organization of their proposal, that they had a good energy and vibe, according to Mike Jackson. And now we're talking about what the a la carte offerings might be that SGR had. Even though their base price is $27,919, there are some add-ons that we would need to consider. Did anybody have any particular add-ons that you were really wanting us to explore?
Things like strategic government resources they use or they promoted the disc.
Yeah.
As opposed to calling. Basically.
Essentially, so that he goes off gut feeling.
Yeah.
Which was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, yes. The DISC personality assessments, I think, are beneficial because it really does give you insight, right, into how are they going to approach situation? What's their empathy level? Like, what areas are they going to need less hand-holding, so to speak? What areas are they going to need a little more support in? So it gives, I think, more of a true personality insight than what we would be able to gather from simply interviews and potential, reference checks.
I think people in these positions you get a feel pretty quickly for their personality. But I do, like, those tests for me have always been kind of almost more helpful in how to best approach someone that just views the world so much differently.
Right.
Yep.
So it's a more effective outcome than, me just charging in be me.
Right?
That might not be how someone else communicates best, and I think that's usually my perspective, the greater value in those, because a lot of city managers, I mean, it would be shocking to find one that's like strong type A personality, right? That always comes through very quickly when you're actually doing interviews, so.
You know, and I see it as a tool for us to work well with them and to help them be successful. So I'm not looking at it as much as a screening tool for picking them as opposed to working with them. Okay. So it sounds like DISC is a yes. I would really like to explore public engagement, whether that's through town hall or survey. So I feel like in the negotiations on the contract, that's something I'd like for us to understand.
Yeah, they offered an online stakeholder survey for like 1,500.
Right.
I think from a timing standpoint, it might be faster to do the online survey.
Yeah.
Make that available.
And you can make the town hall part of the finalist portion. I know they're like, you have to advertise for 3 weeks, but in theory, we know when those interviews are going to be. So we can begin promoting that long in advance.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna say yes on the interview or the public engagement tool. How does anybody else feel about that? Okay.
One
Right.
questions I had, and I'd be interested in staff's input on this is, is it important, because Benziger was coming, they were gonna come and visit right at the beginning and do the interviews of elected officials, of staff and versus SGR, I think gave us an option in that regard. I kind of heard them say, we'll do it if you want to do it. We don't have to. I mean, it's up to you.
And I think,
What's your sense for that?
I mean, I think the option to them is essentially telling you, we'll come, you're gonna pay for us to come
Right.
because their travel is reimbursable, but
Right.
that's what we gotta figure out. I mean, I think initially getting to kind of have them interview and get to know what we're looking for, I think is good. You could probably do it online just as easy and save some money, but and ultimately, I think that's really up to whatever you guys feel is most.
And we could give them a tour of our town. I mean, there's like some real advantages
Yeah.
to them being on site. We're gonna be really strategic with their time. I plan to use every minute that they're here because we're gonna pay for the travel one way or the other.
Yep.
So if they have a 14-hour day, that's okay with me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking as well,
Yeah.
is that, from my standpoint, I think bringing them on site, getting face to face with all of us, is really
Yeah.
a helpful process. That just kind of my take on it.
You can read a whole lot with face to face. As opposed to.
Well, are we talking initially when the recruit, if it's SGR, if they come in to kind of get a feel of our city before they do the brochure and everything, or are you talking about the actual candidates?
No, I'm talking about
The initial,
the initial
yeah, okay,
process before they do the
Yeah.
brochure.
okay, I just want to make sure, I was like, yeah, 100% on the candidates, I think you bring them in.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the screening interviews being remote. I think that's really becoming the standard now, just that. And it sounded as though they would bring us a panel of 6 or 7. Those sounded like they might be recorded. We would get to review those and then pick ours. So we'll have to figure out the process out for some of those pieces.
Those are unique.
Yeah, we'll have to talk, if they are the chosen one, we'll have to talk to them about that, that was extremely odd for the finance.
For the recorded.
Yeah, the recorded ones were, but
But we can do them online where
Sure.
it's give and take and
Yeah.
it's not quite so
Yep.
sterile.
yeah,
But on the fire side, we did the same, and I will say it was a very quick filter out
yeah,
for some.
so.
All right, so those are all items of negotiation. Anything else that people want to be like, be sure we X, Y, Z?
I think the online survey should be the biggest piece of public engagement. And then if we were going to do, I think an in-person thing is good, but more of a meet and greet.
Yes.
And do the question asking on the.
Yeah.
I would hope that we would ask our candidates to do at least a 5-minute pitch. That's the thing I felt like I missed in our previous meet and greets. I'm like, I just wanted an overview of you so that I leave with some impression of you. Otherwise, the one guy who stood in front of me and asked 25 minutes of questions monopolized all of it. Nobody else got to ask.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have strong feelings that they've already got a candidate that they want to recommend? Or do you want to go home and think about it and get back?
I liked SGR.
Okay.
I think my only hesitation is between those two people, because I looked it up as they were talking, and they have a combined 12 months of experience with the organization and recruiting in general. That's my only hesitation, but I think as a firm, they're well-known and they have the resources within their firm, and I would hope that SGR knows that they can do the job if they are pushing them forward, so.
I like Colin. No super strong feelings one way or the other. I kind of like the rapport, actually. I kind of like I connected with him, not that I didn't connect with strategic, but I don't know, it's a tough decision. Tough decision.
Do you want to ask Bryce if he's got any opinions?
I came out, 2 points apart, and so, I mean, from my standpoint, that's in the margin of error. So, I could go either way. I think I'd probably lean towards SGR, given the experience, history with us and things of that nature, but I could go either way. I like that Benziger is the kind of all in, here's the dollar amount. You don't have a dollar cart as much, but I think, both of them would be fine. So,
Okay, so how do we make a decision? We go home and grade them and make a recommendation, because we're gonna need to make a recommendation to our colleagues.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind digesting just a tad, actually.
I'd like to see the scores, what everybody scores them at.
Okay.
And I'd like to know that.
So typical process,
Well,
and you were probably gonna get there,
Everybody
but
submits it,
Yes.
then I'll do a reveal. So I know that we committed to 7 days, so I don't know. I want to speak for you guys because you guys have the hard work of taking this back and putting a number to 2 presentations. But when that's done for everybody, then I'll do the reveal.
Okay, so is it fair to ask by close of business tomorrow?
I think so.
these are cheats.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, your next is gonna talk about next steps relative to with council.
So. Say,
Well, I mean, I think, Heather's gone through this week, so I think but I mean, I think it'd be helpful to have her weigh in, obviously. So my thought is we do a special, meeting at 5 o'clock on Monday, ahead of our regular council meeting and get a broader input. And by that time, we can push out what scores, were on this and go from there.
so we would have both the proposal score and the second score for presentation would be part of the review, or is it just the score?
Well, when it comes down to like overall,
Okay,
the folks that provided something for the first round, that's what'll be
Okay.
available because,
not everybody did.
not everybody did. But then for this round, if everybody gets theirs in by
Okay.
close of tomorrow, then we'll open that up to everybody that meets that timeline. That's not standard, but this is not a standard situation either.
So can we, for the Monday meeting, have you'll have the compilation. Can we go ahead and print the sort of what's included in the package? So whatever they proposed as their deliverables,
Oh,
at least print that page for the conversation with the full council. Not everybody may remember what's in each proposal. I just want to be sure that we're talking through what we expect of them. Because after that, we're gonna have to negotiate the contract, and I just want to be sure the whole council gets input on that.
The goal is November 3rd, I'm assuming, for the council to take official action.
We can vote in a special meeting, so on Monday, I'd like for us to have our discussion and make our vote be done.
Okay, perfect.
Yes,
Even better.
yeah, so because they've got plenty of work to do. So home triggers on that kind of stuff. Okay. What else do we need to discuss?
Does this group need to get back together and make a formal recommendation to the council? on Monday night, that's.
Sure.
I'm asking that question. I don't know that I have an answer, but.
Well, Rich, if you get everybody scoring in by end of business tomorrow, would we be ready to do that maybe on Thursday? Okay. We can do Friday morning, that'd be super helpful for me, but I'll make it work at 11. What's that?
I work at 11 o'clock Friday.
Can you do it before then? Or?
Of course.
Would 9:30 work for you? Because we have the public policy meeting with the chamber.
Give it Friday at 9:30.
And you will notice that up for us. Great, thank you. Fantastic. All right. Nobody has anything else? We'll call our meeting adjourned at 11:25.